That is why we must act with courage, innovation, and foresight to design alternative financing mechanisms, leverage mature national assets, and tap into robust public-private partnerships to undertake this national development imperative. Fellow citizens, 3 weeks ago, I signed the Government-Owned Enterprises Bill into law. The new law revolutionizes the management and governance of state-owned enterprises, professionalizing boards through merit-based independent appointments and tying leadership to measurable results. This is a very consequential reform. It is the most far-reaching reform of government corporations since independence, aimed at turning legacy parastatals into commercially disciplined companies that will serve our public interest. The passage of this law ends the era of cronyism and patronage in our state-owned enterprises. This law explicitly disqualifies any person who has served in a public or political office within the last 5 years from appointment. On Monday, under this new legal framework, and to start this administration's bold and ambitious Kenya shillings 5 trillion roadmap to transform our nation, the Cabinet will meet to consider and approve the architecture of the National Infrastructure Fund as the engine that will align our financial resources with our development goals. Through innovative mobilization of domestic resources, strategic monetization of mature national assets, democratization of ownership through capital markets, and innovative deployment of national savings, we will unlock large-scale private sector capital to fund our national priorities while reducing reliance on borrowing and taxation. For decades, Kenya privatized major assets including Kenya Airways, KenGen, Kenya Re, and Safaricom. Yet the proceeds were absorbed into the budget, paying salaries and debts, leaving no enduring national assets behind. Through the National Infrastructure Fund, all privatization proceeds will be ring-fenced and invested strictly into public infrastructure development that generate and preserve more value. This principle is already being actualized. Proceeds from the current privatization processes will be channeled directly into the fund, setting a new national standard where national assets create lasting public value. Our goal is simple. For every shilling in the National Infrastructure Fund, we will attract 10 more shillings from long-term investors, including pension funds, sovereign partners, private equity funds, and development finance institutions, allowing us to develop without the constraints that come with debt and taxation. The National Infrastructure Fund will not just be a financing instrument. It will be a generational strategy to mobilize capital, accelerate delivery, preserve value, and secure Kenya's long-term competitiveness. To secure future generations, again on Monday, the Cabinet will consider and approve the Sovereign Wealth Fund policy, anchored on 3 pillars, including savings for future generations, stabilization against global shocks, and strategic national investments. Natural resource royalties, dividends from public investments, and a percentage of privatization proceeds will capitalize this fund. This fund will impose on us the obligation of intergenerational equity, bringing to life Article 201C of the Constitution, which demands that the burdens and benefits of the use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between the present and future without shortchanging future generations. With these two instruments, the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we shall begin the journey to the transformation that will lead us from the bottom up, charging forward full steam to economic freedom and taking Kenya to a first world economy. And I have said, it is beginning next Monday. But fellow citizens, even the strongest financial systems, boldest infrastructure plans, and most ambitious economic strategies will fail if we do not secure the foundation of our national character. The realization of our economic freedom project will rest on three critical enablers: strategic human capital development, robust peace, stability, and security architecture, and unwavering integrity and fidelity to the national interest. To bolster human capital development, we have made bold investments in education, skills development, science, and innovation. We have raised the education budget from 490 billion in 2021 to 700 billion this financial year, and expanded science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. But to power our first world strategic human capital requirements, we must and will raise the National Research Fund from the current 0.8% to the requisite 2% of GDP. This is not, ladies and gentlemen, spending or social spending. It is nation building. The second enabler underpinning this national project is peace, stability, and security. For no nation can prosper in an atmosphere of disruption, violence, and criminality that leads to economic sabotage, destruction of property, and loss of lives. Stability is not an option. It is an enabler of everything we seek to build. Serious investors will not commit their investments in a country. Only serious investors will only commit their investments in a country that is peaceful, that is stable, and that is secure. For Kenya to attract sustained investment, for businesses to thrive, for jobs to expand, and for families to live without fear, we must secure our nation firmly, fairly, and without hesitation. Finally, the collective interests of all citizens, which form the national interest of Kenya, must be at the center of every action and engagement. Patriotism is putting the interests of the nation before tribe, clan, or self. Integrity, in its highest form, is patriotism in action. It is believing in our country. It is refusing to betray Kenya. And yet, let us speak honestly, our nation faces a serious integrity deficit. It begins early in our homes, in our schools, where seemingly harmless dishonesty later matures into grand corruption. Corruption is not merely theft of money, it is the theft of hope, opportunity, and destiny. This is compounded by negativity, division, erosion of shared values, and ethical and ethnic political mobilization. Hate and division, corruption and tribalism tear at the very social fabric of our republic. Ladies and gentlemen, our economic freedom project demands more than infrastructure and capital. It demands a renewal of our national conscience. We must build a strong value system. We must defend our national unity. We must raise our children in honesty, responsibility, and love for country. These three enablers, strategic human capital, peace, stability, and security, and national interest and integrity, are not optional ideals. They are the living foundation upon which our economic independence must stand. Without them, our ambition would remain promises. With them, our national priorities become achievable, our investments become productive, and our vision of a prosperous, sovereign Kenya becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Fellow citizens, our founding fathers defeated colonial domination. The generation after broke the chains of dictatorship. The onus is on our generation, and particularly this administration, to achieve economic freedom. A freedom where effort is rewarded, where opportunity is shared, where dignity is guaranteed, where every citizen matters, and where no Kenyan is left behind. Let it be said of our generation that when Kenya stood at the edge of possibility, we chose courage over comfort.